Well, vision is being able to see what is invincible to others. And it's with these very rare credentials that GHD Woodland, one of Australia's most awarded architectural firms, have been able to rewrite the pinnacle of South Australian living. To our registered visionaries, this is your time to secure, invest and enjoy the all-new capabilities. Bronte Manuel's my name, and I'll be overseeing proceedings for the next 15 minutes. Now, I'll simply be complementing the work that's been undertaken by Sharon Gray and her very efficient team at Society Realty. Now, they would have given you all sorts of paperwork, and in there would have been this document. Now, I'm going to read from that shortly. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts on this sublime penthouse, and then we'll be straight into the auction shortly afterwards, as I know you're all very busy people. Now, we sell you, ladies and gentlemen, portion of the land in Certificate of Title, Volume 5896, Folio 411, being Lot 17 in Development Number 123-555C102. Now, this has been annexed to your contract, and ladies and gentlemen, very shortly, it's going to be known to you, I, and the postman as 17, or should I say level 17 of 203 North Terrace, Adelaide. We put it up to sale with plenty of pride. Now, ladies and gentlemen, your settlement date, the day that you get the keys, the day you open the curtains and go, wow. Well, that has been set down for 28 days after completion or within 28 days of obtaining the titles. Now, we do call, of course, for 10% as your deposit, and that's going to be of the total purchase price today. And calling off rights, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's an auction. So quite simply, they just do not apply. Now, GST, that is applicable on today's sale, but that will be included in the bidding. So what you bid is what you pay. Our reserve price. Now, it's very conservative, and our vendor has told us we're not going to tell you what that is, because quite simply, that'll take the fun out of the auction. But subject to reaching or exceeding that figure, and there is no further bidding, then quite simply the property will be announced sold and no further bids will be taken. As a successful purchaser, you're then going to step forward. Sharon's going to give you a celebratory hug, kiss. I'm going to take you inside. You're going to sign the contract, failing of which, well, I'll just do that on your behalf. Now, at the fall of the hammer, well, the property, that's going to be at the risk of the purchaser. But how do you put yourself in that fortunate position? Well, quite simply, you do need to be registered and just display that number when making your bid. I can bid on behalf of our owners. I can do that on 3 occasions, but it's got to be below the reserve price. But don't stress. Any such bid, I'll call it a vendor's bid. Now, I may refuse a bid if in the very unlikely event it's not in the best interest of our vendor. And all those big, bold bidding increments, well, ladies and gentlemen, they'll be at the discretion of myself, the auctioneer. Now, these are all the terms and conditions which are binding and contractual and have been set out and on display for the past 3 working days and 30 minutes on the kitchen bench, or should I say in the foyer today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I still like to pause and just make sure everybody's entirely comfortable and satisfied. So to that end, do I have any last minute questions or queries? Yes, sir.
I don't mind telling you I'm interested in the property. I'm interested to bid today, but that interested is in the property is as an investor. As such, I'd like to take advantage of the negative gearing in that investment.
Oh, good question.
That Federal Labor have declared their intentions to abolish much of the negative gearing benefits. Should settlement take place after a potential change of government, where do I sit with my negative gearing benefits?
Very good question, sir. Who would vote Labor, number one? But number two, look, what I would suggest, if it's anything like the first home buyers grant, do you remember that one, sir? If it's,
yeah, I'm old.
Yeah, well, you're not old, but yeah. If it's anything like that, I would assume it would be from the date of the contract. That's something which you would have had to do your due diligence about, but I would actually be quite confident, number one, that Labor's not going to get in, and number two, it's going to be the case as per your contract. I do wish you well, and I'm going to come back to you for a starting bid.
Thank you very much.
Do I have any further? Yes?
Mr. Auctioneer, this apartment has 3 car spaces. I only envisage needing 1. What is involved in leasing out the other 2?
Well, sir, very good question. You don't have 3 cars. No, look, most people buying this property, they've got 3 or 4, that's all. So quite simply, sir, look, what's involved in that, just speak to one of your leasing agents. I'd suggest Sharon Gray would be more than happy to help you in doing so. With the Strata Corporation, you'd probably just need to, or with the corporation, you just need to get that approved by them. But Sharon would be more than happy to take care of that with you, sir. Secure the property first, and let's deal with that second. What do you say?
Thank you.
Well, what you may not know is when this development was beginning its creation, they actually sent a drone on its journey to try and reach what they would estimate to be the 17th floor. It didn't make it, because it's a very long way up. Now, when it did reach that 15th level, Mr. Duplessis, well, he's a resident, or going to be a resident within this development. Now, he really believes that he could see Wang Wang chewing on some fresh bamboo. He also remarked that he could see Eddie sneaking one from that cheeky pocket. Now, we don't know if this is completely true, but what I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it was very conclusive that being elevated above those treetops, they could see a sea of green. They were mesmerised by those big steel birds consistently coming in to land. They really felt like they were on cloud 9. Now, when a shift is created in a paradigm, there's always some noise, just like the negative gearing. There's always some noise. And believe me when I tell you, this property has created waves across the market. An 1878 unreplicatable, history-rich landmark, accompanied with one of the most sophisticated contemporary improvements. Not to mention it's sited in Adelaide's most expedient and prestigious location. Ladies and gentlemen, this purely and simply is an uncomprehendable combination to most. Glass. We all know it's the most expensive building material, but that has been a staple and will be a staple in this construction. Looking forward, you've got those open spaces, and that is the key to what gives this property what it is today. Just to give you a little bit of an indication of the space that this property offers, is the average size apartment, or should I say above average size apartment in Adelaide, will fit in the living room. And this is the place where Mr. Duplessis' speculation will be proved. When you're there wining and dining with that seamless integration of in and outdoor living with friends, family, or maybe just on that day-to-day basis. The sprawling 367 square metre footprint offers 3 generous bedrooms. Of course, it has a studio, a media room, and at 2.35 metres by 4.3, ladies and gentlemen, I thought it was a 4th bedroom, but it's a dressing room. And if your relationship's anything like me and you can only negotiate just a mere 1/8, you're still going to be very well sorted. The fixtures and fittings, well, they go without saying. They're the best of the absolute best. The colours, the handle, the knobs, the taps, well, that's still for you to choose. 3 car spaces, home automation, living is easy. And I'm not going to offend you by prattling on about the location. Ladies and gentlemen, with all that international interest and interstate interest, we've had to create a 4-page memorandum just to show people what's at their doorstep. I mean, I love Adelaide Oval, the zoo, dare I say it, and of course the beautiful botanical gardens. They're my favourites. Ladies and gentlemen, the most common quote which has been said by visionaries and entrepreneurs is seize the moment, there are no second chances. Now, if you miss out on today, believe me when I suggest it could be a very long way between dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, I put it over to you now. I commend you on your choice of property, looking for an opening bid, opening offer to get us started. Well, if anyone bid it, I'd be blown away, ladies and gentlemen. Just a typical South Australian auction to start. Well, quite simply, what I'm going to do, I'm going to suggest a figure. Now, I'm just going to suggest a figure at, say, 3.75 to start. I think that'd be a nice conservative start for us. And quite simply, if you don't start the bidding, then I will on behalf of the vendor with a vendor's bid. So 3.75, just a suggestion. Sir?
I'd like to suggest a figure too.
Sir, suggest the figure.
2.5 million.
2.5, that's a very long way, sir, and I've only got a time limit here, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to park you just for a moment. I'm going to park you, don't stress. I'm just going to park the bid at 2.5, looking for something closer to 3.75 if we may. Where do we go now, ladies and gentlemen, looking for an opening bidder offer closer to 3.75? Well, sir, I'm actually going to run with that suggestion, as crazy as it seems. So what I'm going to do, it was at 2.5, sir. At 2.5 is the bid now. At 2.5, I'm going to be looking for quarters, which is 2.750 in time. At 2.5, I call now with bidder number 1. At 2.5 is the bid now. At 2.5, sir, what about the cars at 2.750? At 2.5, I bid. At 2.5, I call it now, ladies and gentlemen, first time. At 2.5, second, third and final. At 2.5, do we sell? Well, of course we don't. Not at 2.5. Ladies and gentlemen, vendor bid sits with me, and I'm going to put that at 3 million. 3 million sits with me on behalf of the vendor. At $3 million we sit now at 3 million. I'm going to keep going in quarters. 3 million and 250. You're at 3. Well, sir, your money's better than mine, so I'm going to run with 3 million with bidder number 2 with you. At 3 million is the call. Good to see you. At 3 million, I bid away now at 3 million, sir. The quarter, may I suggest, at this level. At 3 million is the bid with the cars, sir. At 3 million.
$250,000.
That's the number we need with bidder number 3 at 3,250 is the call. At 250,000, I bid away now. 3,250s.
And me.
3.5, sir. Bidder number 4. Good to see you at 3.5. At 3.5, you started the trend. 3.5, 3,750, may I say it. 3.5 is the bid. At 3.5, 3.5, 3,750. 3,750. Good to see you, sir. 3,750 is the bid. At 3,750, I bid away now at 3,750. At 3,750, round me to 4. Where do we go at 3,750? First call at 3,750. Are we sure? At 3,750, second call at 3,750. You're looking down a bit there, sir. Third and final at 3,750. Are we sure?
100,000.
3,850, sir. Just a warning, get them in quicker next time. 3,850. 3.9 with bidder number 1. 3.9 is the bid. At 3.9, I call. 3.950. At 3.950 is the bid down in front. At 3.950, don't leave until the last minute this time. 3.950.
I'll give you 25.
3.975. Could have guessed that from you, sir. Bidder number 2. 3.975. 985 is the bid. At 985 is the bid now. At 985, I bid away now. 3.985. First call at 3.985. Second, third, and final. 3.985.
Same for me.
3.985. 3.995. 9.95 is the call. At 9.95, at 9.95, guys, please don't wait till the last minute. You're going to miss it. 9.95.
250,000.
9.95. You want to go on top of that? So we're at 3.995. 250 is a tricky bid, sir. At 9.95, so that's 3.995 takes us to 4.45. 4.45. 4.245, sir, with you. Is that the bid you're after? 4.245. At 4.245 is the call. At 4.245, I bid away now. Mass competitions are always fun. At 4.245, look at you, so smug there, sir. I just hope you end up with it at 4.245 after that. 2.45, I bid away now, sir, down in front at 2.45. At 2.45, someone round me to 75, I'd think. At 2.45, I call it now. First time at 4.245, second, third, and final.
50,000.
245, 295, sir. At 295 is the bid. At 295, I call now at 295. Sir, what are you going to throw at me this time? 295, 345, sir. At 345 is the bid. You want another 50? 345 is the number here. At 345, I call it now at 345, sir. At 345, I call it.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind before you promise?
Call me whatever you like.
Mr. Rock, here, you were quoting 4.3 million in your preamble and your advertising. Does that mean that we've hit the reserve price?
No, sir. That doesn't mean we've hit the reserve price. So look, legally we can set the reserve 10% above the reserve price. I'm not suggesting that's the case here, but also what I did say at the start is that'll take the fun out of the auction. I can't tell you the reserve. But sir, you're in front with the bid. We're in front with the bid now. Brett, can I just confirm the bid, please, sir?
4,345,000.
4,345. At 345 is the call. At 4,345 we bid. 445, sir. At 445 is the bid up the back. At 445 we bid a number 2. At 445 I bid away now. 445. 445. 495 down in front. At 495 I call it now. 495. 595, sir. At 595 is the bid. At 595 I bid away now. 595. 640. 595, 645 with you, sir, up the back. At 645 is the call. At 645, 645, 50 and 70 is the call. At 670 with you, happy with that at 670. At 670 is the number. 670, 695. Back at the 95 at 695 is the call. At 695, I call it now. 695, 705, sir, with bidder number 1 at 705. Yes, at 701 is the call. At 705, I bid now. Sir, this is not the time to walk out of the auction. At 705, I know an agent that knows value and it's you. What do you say? At 705, round me to 750. At 705, I call it now. First call at 4705, second, third, and final.
I'll give you 5,000.
4710. 710 is the bid down in front. At 710 we go now. At 4710 is the bid. At 4710, sir. At 710 I call it now. At 710,000 is the bid. At 4,710,000, 710, 12.5 is the call. At 712.5 is the bid.
Got me, auctioneer. I'm leaving. I retract my bid.
You can't retract your bid, sir, but you can leave. I'll just sign it on your behalf. At 712.5, all the best. At 4712.5. At 4712.5, I call now. At 4712.5, 415, may I say. At 4712.5, we call it now, ladies and gentlemen. First time at 4712.5, second, third, and final call. 4712.5, 4715, sir. At 715 is the bid. At 715. 715, 715, 717.5. Bit of a tongue twister, always good fun. At 717.5. At 717.5. 717.5, 720, sir. Good to round me off now. At 720, 722.5, I guess is what we take there. At 722.5 is the bid. At 722.5, I call it now. First time at 722.5. Second at 722.5. We bid away now. 724.5. 724.5 with bidder number 1. At 724.5. 726.5. At 726.5 is the call. 728.5 down in front. At 728.5 is the bid now with the car parks. At 728.5. 728.5. 730 with you, ma'am. At 730. Good to round me at 730. 730. 731.5 with bidder number 1. At 731.5 we bid away now. 731, 732, sir. At 732 is the call. 732,500, may I say, sir? At 732,500? 732,500 is the bid. At 732,500, where do we go now? At 732,500, 752,500. Good bid at 752,500. That's an intimidation strategy. Don't fall for it. At 752,500 is the bid. At 752,500, I call it now, ladies and gentlemen. First time at 752,500. Second, third, and final. Are we sure? At 3 million. 3 million? I'm only joking. 4,752,500 I bid now, ladies and gentlemen. Third and final. I am selling. Are we sure? Are we sure? Going. Sold. Congratulations, bidder number 3. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Society Realty, thank you very, very much for your attendance. A big congratulations. I sincerely hope I come along to that housewarming party. On behalf of Society Realty, we can't guarantee the exact same property again, but we'll try our best, or should I say Sharon will, to try and fulfil your real estate needs. Thank you very, very much. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.